at night.
Hey guys, alright. So, I am going to get started with some news, like I said last episode. So, um, I guess before I do that, something I want to talk about is, um, if you guys want to take a look at my Twitter, it's probably where I post the most stuff that's relevant to the podcast. It should be overlaid on the episode, plus there should be the option to check it out in the descriptions of any of my YouTube videos, stuff like that. But yeah, I want you guys to check that out if you're interested, and any of my other social medias as well. But that's probably the one where I have the most stuff that is relevant towards that, or towards this. Everything else is probably a bit more specific to my life and just the normal stuff that I do. So, Aaron, the first thing that we're going to talk about, we'll just go into the news about it, then we'll discuss it actually later, is Aaron Rodgers' deal was supposed to be done, but and we talked about this a little bit, but he actually had come out with a list of demands that any team that was going to sign him would have to meet. This started to sway people, I think, away from feeling as though feeling as though um he had been able to or wanted to sign with the Jets. He was at the point where, everybody assumed that he was going to sign with the Jets, and then when this had come out, it kind of reversed the thought process that, and it was still an open discussion. I think that something that he really wanted to do over the time period was really get rid of that discussion and make it so that people knew he was ready for the Jets. So today he actually came out and had another talk with the Pat McAfee podcast. I didn't get to watch it, but I heard through sources that he came to the conclusion that he wanted to play with the he wanted to play with the Jets, and that not only did he want to play with the Jets, that this is something that after the little retreat to see what he wanted to do, if he wanted to retire, that the discussions of having him heard of or him hearing of the Packers shopping him around made him kind of want to come back and play with the team that respected him and really wanted him. So I think that's why he went to the Jets and decided to come back, and he announced that. So it should be done. I told you guys, but we'll go into that more. So this is just something like quick news. I don't know if I already talked about it, but Geno Smith is back with the Seahawks. Same thing with this. Daniel Jones got a huge contract with the Giants. That is kind of representative of the way the league's heading with like quarterbacks and everything, and I'm not too surprised about it, but I just makes me scared about what the Patriots' talent looks like in the future, considering their fear of paying people who are, kind of deserving of money. If you look at the Ravens, they kind of run a similar ship to the Patriots, I would say. And, if you look at the Daniel Jones versus the Lamar Jackson situation, it kind of is representative of how two different organizations look at talent. But, past the point. Andy Dalton has moved to the Panthers. That's something that I thought was a little bit interesting, but we'll discuss that a bit later. I don't have to say that after every play. A list of Patriot signings, because there was a lot, and I feel like that's the most important thing for us, so we're just going to go through it. Jonathan Jones is back on as Pat's cornerback or safety, potentially. Some discussion's been heard, probably cornerback, but, just been floated out there. Patriots expected to sign 11-year veteran offensive tackle Riley Rife. I don't really know too much about him. I'll have to check it out again. I just read that. Didn't really read too much into the player. Just a lot of nobodies, to be honest. Patriots re-sign safety Jabril Peppers to a 2-year deal. Patriots tender cornerback Miles Bryant. Don't really know what that means, but I do know he'll probably be back unless somebody offers him something and they match it. So I guess that's what that means. Or they don't match it, but yeah, that's what that means. Former Broncos offensive tackle Calvin Anderson signs with the Patriots. So that'll be something to watch. Hopefully the tackle depth gets a little bit better, and this year we see the line take a step up, especially with some of the talent seeming to go away too. It'll be nice to fill it out. Patriots released their punter Jake Bailey. I don't know if we talked about that. Jonnu Smith traded to the Falcons. Linebacker Raekwon McMillan sticks around on a 1-year contract. Matt Slater is back. I think we talked about that. Offensive tackle Connor McDermott resigns with the Patriots for 2 years. And Devin McCourty retires. So, just take a moment to thank Devin McCourty, such an awesome player who really kind of defined the Patriots. Like, when they were winning, he defined the Patriots attitude and the Patriots philosophy. A player that I was very interested in because he was more active during my time of watching the Patriots. So thanks Devin McCourty, and I hope everything that happens after your career suits you and works out well. So this isn't Patriots signings, but it does have to do with the Patriots. I guess Jonnu Smith was the same thing, so I will throw this in. Jacoby Myers signs a 3-year deal with the Raiders for... Wait, is it 3-year? Jacoby Myers deal. Well, Jacoby Myers signed a deal with the Raiders. Jimmy G also went to the Raiders, and we'll get to the details on that contract right now. Actually, we'll do that, but while we do that, we are going to play our intro. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Jacob.
At night.
Guys, so I just checked it out, and it does look like he signed a 3-year deal worth $33 million, which seems to be exactly the same deal that Smith-Schuster signed, which I don't even know if I put that in the news. Oh God, my fault. But yes, that's kind of the big move is that Juju Smith-Schuster signed with the Patriots, and he signed a $33 million 3-year contract. Essentially the same thing that we just lost Jacoby Myers for. And the one thing that I feel about that is I do think it might be a step up. I really don't know too much about the past of or the seasons where Juju Smith-Schuster has had breakout seasons, which he's had seemingly like very standout seasons. But the thing that worries me is he's also had decent quarterbacks. I really want to see So sorry that took so long, but if I'm looking at it, he had all right. So taking a look at it, he had Big Ben during decent years. He had Patrick Mahomes, so he's had decent QBs. He's going to take, in my opinion, a step back from either one of those, just in terms of Mac Jones coming into another kind of new year with a new offensive coordinator. Unless we get a step up in talent, there is no reason to believe we are at the top of the list in any sort of receiving category. So, I don't think there's going to be any huge changes in terms of how this offense is able to produce outside of maybe a few game plan changes that better utilize the lack thereof weapons that we have. I don't really see Bill O'Brien making a huge difference, and I think that's the issue. I don't think it's Mac Jones. I don't think it's Bill O'Brien. I think it's Bill Belichick and the GM, Bill Belichick, who continuously leaves us in the situation where we're signing nobodies who are not only embarrassing to the team, like as we put ourselves in the national media, but just as people look at the roster that we currently have and the results that we put up last season, it's so hard not to feel as though we're a team that's just fishing for last place in our own division. But hey, still early. I'd love to see what happens going forward. There's a lot of big moves that can happen, trades that are still available. The draft, we still have the pick, so I believe it's the 14th. So there's no reason to believe we can't make big moves. It's just based on the history and everything that we've done up until this moment. It's hard to feel that there's something left that we're going to be doing that is mind-boggling. Sorry about that. So, we're not going to sit on that for too long. I think something that I really wanted to get into right away and is really big to me is the whole idea of. You know what? First thing I want to do, March Madness. We skipped too much of it leading up, so we're going to talk a little bit about March Madness with my very limited knowledge going in this year. I promise next year will be a more in-depth talk and conversation and lead up to the March Madness extravaganza. But this year, it's just going to be some fun chit-chat about this. So, I have my bracket right here. I think that something that I was really interested in was just taking a look and seeing what everybody else is looking at in terms of brackets. So if you guys have brackets, please send them in because I want to take a look. I want to see how mine compares to yours, the mistakes that I clearly made, and the things that you guys see and that I don't. I don't really pay attention a lot to this, so there's a lot that I can learn and do that you guys could, really put me onto. So I have a lot of faith in honestly, I don't really know how a lot of these teams are going to work out because I didn't watch a lot of the basketball. But after kind of paying attention for the end, I like Texas. Okay. I really think that that team is looking good from the stuff I saw. I was looking at some stats, They seem to have some good results. I like Gonzaga. I like them to do well in this tournament. I think that, their record's pretty good. This is kind of just a casual's take on this one. I can't even lie. I clearly have very little information. I don't even know who kind of tops out. I mean, I think that there's some room for me to kind of just throw random. Ooh. Oh. So, either way, I have Gonzaga winning my bracket. I want to know who you have winning yours. I just, I clearly have no idea what I'm talking about, but that's what I put in, and that's what I'm going to stick to. I like the Bulldog dude who represents the team, and, after reading a few articles about them, that's clearly who's going to win. So don't come crying to me when I say I told you so again. That is the March Madness talk, since I had a less easy time than I thought talking about it, to be honest. So we're gonna hop right into Rogers. Something that I'm really aggravated about, I could say, is how Aaron Rodgers has handled the situation. He clearly could have he either could have retired or retired and came out of retirement, or not retired and waited and done something similar to how he's doing now. But the one thing that really just doesn't make sense and is very aggravating to me It's just the fact that he chooses to, kind of play along this idea of, oh, woe is me, what do I want to do, who do I go to type of thing, when, just hang out. Like, make your decision. Why, who else, Russell Wilson's the only other quarterback you hear about giving all these things about, lists of requests of what he wants before he goes there. Well, look how Russell Wilson turned out. I think it's representative of why you can't invest all of this into these quarterbacks when you kind of don't have a guarantee that they're going to be the same person that they used to be. Just the reputation that they have currently is what you're guaranteeing. You're guaranteeing the reputation and the attitude, but not the play. And I think that's the same thing with Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers. But like, Aaron Rodgers has more ability to. I feel two things. Aaron Rodgers has more talent on the team to currently take advantage of and go into the future with, and knowing that for a year or two he's going to be stacked for winning. I think that we thought the Broncos were better than they were, but at the end of the day I also think we thought Russell Wilson was better than he was. Aaron Rodgers might be a bit better than people expect, but the one thing I do believe is 100% true are the Jets are way more legitimate outside of their quarterback than the Broncos were heading into last season. I truly believe that the Jets with Aaron Rodgers are going to be a top 2, top 3 team in the AFC East. I don't know 100% how it's going to work out, but I think that it's no longer 2 guaranteed wins for the Patriots, and I think that's the difference in this division between being 1-4, 2-4. This is the most competitive division, one of the most competitive conferences in all of football at this point. And it's not a cakewalk. It's not going to be, that easy. You hear people. I heard a caller on a radio show that I listened to today saying, and of course, these people, but saying to the effect of people are the organizations being the Dolphins, the Jets, and the Bills are all invested into this season will not be good moving forward past these seasons, or this season into the ones in the future. And the one thing, it's just like, how do you even believe that? They have so much young talent on all of these The only team, the Patriots are one of the oldest teams in the NFL. They're horrible in terms of that exact trait compared to these teams. And you think we are the ones who are not invested in, because we don't invest ever in the present. It's what they do. It's their thing. It's the Patriots way. But I want Aaron Rodgers to succeed and do his thing on the Jets in a way, but fuck him. I mean, he's going to be playing the Patriots. I'm not going to like him once he's doing that. I just want him to be tough games for the Patriots, because it'll show the Patriots that they need to improve, because now the Jets are better than them, and that means your ass. But there was talks of the Patriots reportedly, like, discussing certain things with the Jets before the whole thing came out with the podcast today. I think that's a horrible idea, but not because I think that he's a worse quarterback than Mac Jones. I just think he's a more expensive quarterback than Mac Jones, who you're going to get very limited time of excellence out of. And then on top of that, you're going to get very little real results out of in the years that you have him, in my opinion. And for that reasoning, I just don't think it's worth it. I think that the extra skill you get when you get Aaron Rodgers is defeated when you have a team that can't really step it up. He's not the quarterback he used to be. And on top of that, if we look at his last season, it just wasn't that great. And it was because he didn't have talent. Well, guess what? If you can't step up the talent around you, you should not come to the Patriots. Never, ever, ever. Don't come to the Patriots, because that is the worst possible situation for you, butto. The only quarterbacks who should come to the Patriots, if you can step up the talent around you, are like Patrick Mahomes and maybe a Tom Brady. If he wants to come out of retirement to the team that fucked him, yeah, like he can, do that and come play with the Patriots and raise these crappy receivers to be something that they're not. But outside of that, most quarterbacks in the NFL today need a high quality receiver, which we don't have. Outside of Patrick Mahomes, of course, unless you want to pull him to Juju Smith-Schuster. But we wouldn't even pay him, so we couldn't even get Patrick Mahomes unless he was on a rookie contract, which, of course, we have Mac Jones. So something else I wanted to talk about was Bill Belichick releasing Jake Bailey. What a friggin' waste of time. That dude was just such a joke for that whole year, and we signed him to a 4-year contract for so much money just for him to turn around and, be a joke. And yeah, I have nothing against him. Like, you don't play good, you do play good, that's up to you. Like, I don't love it, but, I can't control his play. But just the way it ended up was dirty. The organization looked really dirty for it, in my opinion, suspending him and trying to get the money back that you paid him. Or at least portions of it back. I mean, I get it, you do what you gotta do, but in this league, stuff like that gets out there and people don't want to sign with you because of that stuff. And guess what happens? People don't want to sign with you. It's getting harder to get that star talent because they're going to make you pay that extra money because they know how much of a douche and how low they're going to screw you when it comes down to the next time around or anything. The Patriots, it would come across, are going to do everything they can to gyp you in any way possible. And that's the stuff that I think, you get out of stuff like that. And it looks bad. And, today there was reports that, a player from another team was hitting free agency for a special teams position and did not get picked up by the Patriots, even though they offered him more money than the original team because he just didn't want to play for Bill Belichick. And I think it's exactly to that effect of why people don't want to play for Bill Belichick. They know he'll screw you. They know he's just going to be a hard ass, and at this point he's being a hard ass with no results, and you get mediocre quality, but you have to work twice as hard as a team that is going to kind of carry you to this ring. It just doesn't even make sense. Yep, and then outside of that, Jonnu Smith went to the Falcons for a hot dog and a bag of peanuts. So we spent a lot of money on that free agency, and both of those tight ends are talking to other people or gone. Yeah, I think it's insane how much that fell apart, and there's still no Bill Belichick's on the hot seat talk outside of, like, sports talk radio, which most Boston people seem to think is just filled with buffoons. So it's like, I guess Jacob and sports talk radio and everyone else seem to see that everything that's happened, every decision that's made since Brady or 2016, honestly, has kind of been a detrimental one to the organization. 2018, I guess, has been a detrimental one to the organization. What are we doing? I mean, I don't want Joanna Smith back. Trust me, get rid of him. But just proof that it was a horrible signing for no reason anyway, just to tout that, they were doing stuff post Tom Brady and post Tom Brady's Super Bowl win. But, at the end of the day, they did nothing. Nothing. You did nothing. You did fucking nothing. But a team that has been doing something and has been really focusing on the future, like, winning a Super Bowl right now in the future, I guess, is the Raiders. And, I think it's going to be an insane look this year with they have Hunter Renfrow, they have Devontae Adams, and then they have now Jacoby Myers, who signed there. They're going to have Jimmy Garoppolo and forget who else went there. But they can have at least Jimmy Garoppolo at the quarterback. And then they're going to have Josh Jacobs as the running back. I think that's going to be a really stacked lineup. I think it's going to be a completely different team than it was last year. And I hope that they're going to be better because I really like that team. I like a lot of the players there. And I think that, we're going to get to see something awesome there. But I'm not too sure how it's going to look, honestly. I think that Josh Jacobs is good, but I'm a little bit worried about where he's going to be next year. He's kind of a player that has a lot of holes in his game, and if the Raiders start looking good and people start focusing on them, will he be handled a little bit differently? I don't know. The one thing is will Jimmy Garoppolo be able to properly, lead the offense? Will the addition of Jacoby Myers allow? The addition of Jacoby Myers working with Hunter Renfrow allow for Devontae Adams to continue to wreak havoc and, wreak more havoc in the coming year. That'll be the big things that show. And then on top of that, it'll be, does the defense perform a little bit better? Which just has to happen. There really, isn't a team that I think is more in a, weird situation than the Panthers. Just kind of to get off of the Raiders situation, just because, I don't necessarily know how important it is to keep talking about them. I think that they're a team that's kind of hard to predict at this point, and we're gonna have to watch with them, especially the first few games will kind of decide, I think, a lot of their season and where they go. But the Panthers are they're obviously in a rebuilding phase, but I think that with the addition of Andy Dalton, they haven't necessarily taken a step in the direction of what a rebuilding phase should be, in my opinion, where he has no legitimate threat to win. I think there are certain players that you can at least justify, some sort of winning caliber, but other quarterbacks, it's just not there. And I think that you want somebody who's gonna fill seats for your fans and everything, and I just think that's not it. Unless you're gonna get something from the draft, and I think they have a high pick, so they will. They're gonna get a QB, but unless you do, I think that's the wrong one. But hey, if he's a backup to Richardson, Anthony Richardson, or whoever else gets picked in that early draft, then it'll make sense. Who is it? We have for the Panthers. They have okay. So it looks like the Panthers did take the Chicago's first rounder, which is the number one overall, so that they could grab a quarterback. Because I think the Chicago Bears knew it's gonna be quarterbacks taken in the first round, and it's high value to teams that want quarterbacks, and they have Justin Fields, so there's no reason to go fishing for a quarterback, at least not right now, when you could end up in the same situation with two of these like weird kind of like iffy quarterbacks that you can't really trust. Um so I also wanted to take a second to kind of like congratulate Jared Stidham on the legalized bank robbery, signing with the Broncos for that deal. He's been just floating around the league for a little bit now, but after being that backup with the Patriots for a little bit, he went over to the Raiders and now he's over with the Broncos. Got a good deal. $10 million a year, I think. I don't know. So he got something, but it is something that I don't get how these quarterbacks get paid so much. It is crazy to me. So something that I kind of wanted to get into was the whole I guess it would be like I want to do a type of draft talk before we get into anything UFC or stuff like that. Um, in my opinion, it really is interesting to talk about the draft and what the Patriots will do, because they're gonna do nothing, and that is not to joke around, but I've always hated how the Patriots have drafted, and I consider it to be one of their biggest detrimental factors. Like, at least for my generation of watching the Patriots, what's kind of let them fall so far from grace. So I think that paying attention to the draft and making it an important factor is something that has to be done, because we're not a team that can not pay attention to it anymore. It's something that, especially for a low spending bad team, it's really important to pay attention to the draft. But yeah, so I wanted to take a minute to look at that. I'm gonna pull that up for a second, but give me a moment. So, all right. We have the 14th pick, and with the updated rankings on who is most likely to get sick, so cool. So a couple picks that we have listed as like the first round selections are, and this is just from experts on Patriots.com. We got Antoine Harrison, an offensive tackle from Oklahoma, 6'4", 315, 34 and a half, 34 and a fourth inch arms. His excellent footwork and range at the position with significant depth out of his kick slide. His foot speed and change of direction and pass protection are top tier in this class, while he can make blocks on the move in the outside zone, pin pull, screens, and second level climbs. Harrison will generate more movement with better pad levels and hand placement in the run game, but it's not a functional power or effort issue. Harrison should be long-term starter on the left side, and that's worthy of the 14th pick. I agree. I think that, having somebody to protect the blind side is just something that's so important, and if he has the ability to kind of, protect both the pass and the run, it'll be a big step. But yeah, outside of that, you got Joey Porter Jr., cornerback from Penn State. Mike Dussault from Patriots.com. He has him at no really statistics on his size or anything, but seems to be pretty decent. I agree that cornerback is desperately important position, especially, with the fact that we haven't really moved anything in terms of that position. Brian Branch, a safety from Alabama. I think clearly we need a safety. I was just talking about moving, potentially hearing stuff about Jonathan Jones moving to safety. So if they picked one up, a really talented one that could stick with the Patriots for a decent amount of time, it could completely change the, backfield or the Patriots' defensive backfield, and then they wouldn't have to do it, and they could kind of loosen up on who they have at cornerback, and that would change that. So, it'd be a potentially, if he's good enough, it would be a potentially saving pick from cornerback, because the Patriots do have the ability, and I believe this, to make not super talented quarterbacks into, a step above what they could otherwise produce. This guy, a CBS Sports writer, has Bijan Robinson, a running back from I don't even know. We're not drafting a running back for the 14th pick. If we do, I'm not a Patriots. I swear, if we draft a running back with the 14th pick in the draft, I will not be a running back fan. I will not be a Patriots fan anymore. Yeah, so I mean, there's decent reason to think about him, but no. Nope. Paris Johnson Jr., offensive tackle, Ohio State. Again, somebody who will be a huge help out to the offensive tackle or to the offensive line, and, could fill in that tackle position. It doesn't say. I think he's a right OT, right tackle, so that wouldn't fill the left side, which is probably the more important side, but either way, I think we could be losing both, so it will be important either way. A few people going with Joey Porter Jr., and I think that's a decent pick. I've been looking at him, and I think that at the end of the day, it's somebody who could really fill that necessary cornerback position. Quentin Johnson. So we don't have to go through everybody, but for wide receivers, a couple I wanted to take a look at were Quentin Johnson, because obviously, he's gonna be a potential, or he's gonna be talked about because the Patriots need a wide receiver, and he has the potential to be available. So Johnston stands at 6'3" and 208. He has really good vertical, and he just, he was a really explosive player. Has the potential to be a huge wide receiver, honestly. Like, let's be real, that's friggin' massive. So sorry, I backed out of it, but what was it, 6'3"? Friggin' huge. Zay Flowers was another one that could be a possibility. No idea what the size is at, but friggin' Zay Flowers would be a very interesting wide receiver. A bit more speedy, it seems like, a bit smaller. Jackson Smith, from a wide receiver from Ohio State, had a great season. In his sophomore year. And he was injury. Yes, so he was one of the players that had a lot of injuries in 2022. I'm a little bit worried about him. I would just let him fall, honestly. I know that could be one of the things that I regret saying, but with injuries this early, especially hamstring injuries, it's just like, do we really want this player to be a part of the organization that cannot pick a wide receiver? Like, I can't be the one who picks a guy like that and then, turns around and says, okay, yeah, I stuck behind him, and like, we got another guy who couldn't, fill the hole or even show up to the, games and play. So yeah, those are the main wide receivers. Defensive back is another position. A couple safeties. Just stuff that would fill up, mainly the holes. But honestly, I think that we would probably put it, if we had to, like this. Patriots definitely have holes that we're going to need to fill. But the holes that really, really need to get filled are, for me, wide receiver just needs to get filled. I think we made a lateral move today with Juju Smith-Schuster signing with the Patriots. And, overall it could end up being worse than a lateral move, so I guess we'll have to see. I think that, outside of that, though, I think that that's an obvious one. And I really want to take a second to point this out. 2019, the Patriots struggled against the Tennessee Titans. We didn't go too far. We had a mediocre wide receiver core. Cam Newton got a mediocre wide receiver core. He struggled horribly. Now, Cam Newton wasn't as good as, he was in his prime, and he probably wasn't the best quarterback overall. But at the end of the day, who was he throwing to, really? Like, that's an argument that has to be made. Tom Brady really could not win with that wide receiver core. Neither could Cam Newton. Neither could Mac Jones. And these are all people who were, either mentally not in the right place or just not great quarterbacks in general. But what do we expect when great quarterbacks can't win with that wide receiver core specifically? Not even mediocre. Sometimes you could consider those worse than mediocre wide receiver cores in the NFL. It's just a joke that this is still an issue that is this large. Like, who are these guys throwing to? The last time it was considered good was when Edelman and Gronk were still here in 2018, and that's it. It hasn't been good since even before that, in 2016 maybe. But we won't even, we'll take 2018 because we won a Super Bowl. Everything after that has just been a complete downturn. Since Edelman's injuries, it's just been too much. There's been nobody to fill the holes, any hole. Nobody has stepped up to be a legitimate number one, pass catcher. Not even receiver. Pass catcher. No tight ends, no receivers, nothing. There's been no number one option for Mac Jones. A bunch of number twos, and he's had a number one, obviously, because there has to be somebody who filters out to the top. But outside of that bull crap, there's not really been anybody. So, my biggest hole that needs to be filled in the draft outside of that is offensive tackle. Offensive tackle, we have just a lot going on with what happened last season that needs to be filled. And, with the reality of losing both of the offensive tackles on the horizon, there's just too much on the line if we don't get one, because it could just destroy the whole arc of the season with Bill O'Brien's addition and, the addition of Juju Smith-Schuster meaning nothing if Mac Jones can't get the ball off. He's not Joe Burrow. He's not going to have a good season with a horrible offensive line. It's just not possible. Most quarterbacks wouldn't. Even Patrick Mahomes, we saw what happened when he played with a bad offensive line. You could still win, but just like Joe Burrow, you just can't take it all the way if you don't have the people in front of you protecting it. So fill the offensive tackle so that he actually can get the ball off, and then the team will seem more legitimate. The offense will seem more legitimate. When you plug and play another quarterback, if Mac Jones isn't the guy, it won't be a waste of fucking time. I've been hearing a lot of talk about linebacker unit outside of the cornerback and safeties. I think that the linebacker unit was decently better than I had originally expected going into last season. I'm not necessarily sure that they'll be able to do it again, but I have no reason not to believe it. So I want to take that and maybe fill it later in the draft if it has to be. I also think that the edge rushers will be pretty dominant again this year. Um, there's no reason to keep doing that, especially if you're Bill Belichick. I know he wants to, but you know, it's just not worth it when there's so many other holes. You should test the waters with Uche, and you know, on the last year of his rookie, and see where you can go from there. Um, but yeah, defensively, if you get a cornerback, you take less pressure off your D line. Vice versa, you already have a good line. You already have decent linebacker core. Give yourself the cornerback safety to take the pressure off those guys, and vice versa, safety corner, and then losing these guys won't be as big of a hole. I think the Patriots will still have a good defense. I'm not trying to argue that. I just think that they have holes against really good teams because the offense is not going to be great. It's just not going to be a great offense, so they're going to have to really be a great defense. And, for that to happen, they can't rely on, mediocre players at every single position. There has to be some stars spread across to take pressure off of the other people who make up this defense and who make up the very good or very well put together defense of I'll give it to like the defensive coordinator who is Steve. I think it's Steve Belichick. I don't think it's Gerard Mayo. Gerard and Steve, it's them, it's Bill, all that. They kept the ship going, and that's all you can ask for with how the team has been looking outside of that. But now we are going to we're in a bit of a weird position. We've had a pretty long episode just talking straight NFL pretty much, and a little bit we did on March Madness. I would say we'll do a little bit of talk about the UFC. Won't do too much, and then yeah, that'll be it. Not going to be a crazy long episode, maybe a bit longer than usual, but no issue with that. So I wanted to talk about the previous UFC card, Jan versus Merab. There's been a lot of controversy surrounding that because of the way it went, because of everything that's kind of been going on after and before. So there was obviously Jan hitting Merab in the throat before the press conference, all the talk about politics between Merab and Jan because of the Georgian and Russian descent and the obvious war that's going on between Russia and Ukraine, and then on top of that, the issues between Georgia and Russia, which I don't know enough about to really comment on or know about, but, outside of that, just that's the beef that I don't really get into, not my issue, and I think that that's up to them to kind of decide if it's worth bringing up in a UFC press conference or whatever. But wow, that was a dominant performance over somebody that I considered and I talked about to be one of the people that I is a high tier person, or is the best in the bantamweight division. I seriously had that belief in that, and he completely dismantled that belief and that person. He took him apart in every single round. There was never a point where I felt like that Merab was gonna be in any danger to Jan. I think that he made Jan fish into territories that he was very uncomfortable in, that that completely changed the feeling of the fight from the beginning, and he just did it all the way to the end. And there was no point where I felt there was not that same effect going on. The 49 attempted takedowns is just insane. You see why he has the nickname, and I mean, the dude's a machine. He's just a freak of nature, and I think he'll give everybody a run for their money in the division, except for the fact that, and this leads to my next point, he's not going to fight Aljo because they train together and they're boys, and that's an issue. I personally, I'm going to talk about something later, but I personally just, I don't agree with that. I think that he's an incredibly great fighter. He's going to act as a gatekeeper that just filters out other fighters who are looking to get the title shot, but he's not going to take the title shot himself for years, possibly. And the idea of that is that he's gonna fight the people who want the title shot, rip them apart, because he probably could rip apart Aljo himself. And then one day when Aljo friggin' retires with the belt because he fought one person in the meantime, he goes and fights and takes the belt after. It doesn't make sense to me. It's a waste of everybody's time. He's banking on the fact that Aljo leaves the UFC, which is just stupid to me, and it's just, there has to be something done to combat that. And if I agree with Dana White, an MMA guru, on something, then assume, yeah, it's kind of something that is probably off-putting, at least. But I think that the way MMA guru addressed that situation was just insane. I think that it's just representative of the way that MMA culture is. People just talk how they want about these fighters, but these people are humans. These people live lives, have cultures outside of it that are not inside of the UFC MMA arena, and they get tied so deeply into it. The idea of a Dagestani wrestler, it's Dagestani people exist outside of wrestling, and speaking so down on these people's names because of a sport is just it's exactly what people expect from MMA fans, and hopefully that just changes over time. I mean, obviously the face of MMA has changed a bit over time, but it's just to me, it's not moving quick enough. And it's just disappointing to see the top people and kind of the YouTube culture just be so out of touch with what a normal human thinks. I think that he's perfectly fine with MMA. A lot of people are perfectly fine with MMA. There are John Jones and, a lot of people who are actually good at MMA who are, kind of insane outside of it. I have no idea what he's like. I don't really care. I just think it's the idea that the people surrounding MMA tend to just be, when I have a lack of words, just off their rocker. No sense of right or wrong, and it just can say whatever they want. But we're gonna move on. We have a big card coming up, UFC 286. Incredibly interesting to me. We have Edwards versus Usman, the trilogy, number 3. Usman coming back, trying to become a new. Edwards fighting in his home, fighting out of England. It's going to be an incredibly big fight there. I think it's going to be just tons of energy, going to be big for him. Hopefully, with the win that he is coming off of, he'll be able to get the jitters off that he's kind of spoken about in the last fights. And it's just the best performance he can put out there so that if Usman wins, there's no questioning it. He's just the better fighter, and if Edwards wins, it's really just, the striking outweighs, good striking. A tough dude who can strike well can not just come out with odds in a fight. It's just a legit way to be at the top. I would really be interested to see how the UFC changes or the dynamic of it changes if Edwards becomes the legit top contender of that division. He's obviously going to have to fight people like Kobe and everything, but I hope he knocks Kobe the fuck out. God, if he lost to Kobe, I'd be so pissed. But I hope Usman would just come in, or not even I hope, Usman would just come in and, wrestle fuck him, so why do I care? I don't. I like Usman, too, so that's my opinion. But just, something that I'm worried about is Usman going too extreme with this comeback. There's two ways to look at it. Is he could either come back and just be super gun shy, not taking any risks, going for exactly what he thinks is necessary. And I think that by not taking risks, you kind of put yourselves in situations that other fighters who are taking risks will take advantage of. If you're looking to play it safe the whole time, I totally think that's a viable option. I just worry about the fact that people like Edwards in that last fight will be taking the risk and will land the shot. The other side of it is he gets too hyped, and the knockout was too publicized for him, and it goes in looking to do the same thing back to Edwards, and he just doesn't beat Edwards at his own game. I just don't believe that's going to happen. I think that Edwards is an incredibly high level striker and an incredibly good fighter. I think that, if he tries to do that and goes to that extreme, then it's just not going to turn out good for him, and I think we'll see that when the fight happens. But I would recommend staying to the middle to more gun shy, just going in and doing exactly what you have to do, which I think is exactly what Usman will do. I think every time we've seen him fight, it's his character, but this is the one time where it's more important than almost any other. And I have total faith that he's going to pull through. Honestly, quoting it here, I am totally on for Kamaru Usman. He is an incredibly high quality fighter to watch, a high quality fighter to have taken the octagon, and I don't think that this is the end of his career or the end of his reign, because I don't think if he lost it would be the end of his career. I think he'd still be able to win, like I said, against a Kobe if he took it or something like that. Just I don't think it's the end of his reign even. So going into the fights later, we'll talk about Masvidal versus Burns and all that stuff. But for now, we're gonna take a look at the Fizzy's versus Justin Gaethje fight. Before we had talked about placing the bet on Justin Gaethje because we just felt like he was just such a high quality striker, high quality fighter, and outside of the obvious holes in his game, like a jab, there is things that will be kind of in his pocket because of just the level of talent that he's fought. But Fizie's, this could be his ability, this the fight that kind of takes him to the top, and I think that he knows that, obviously, and this will be the first win on his resume that really stands out. So I have no reason to kind of like sit here and say that he has no shot. But I just think that betting against Justin Gaethje, especially in a fight like this, isn't in your favor. I think a lot of people are gonna. I think I've checked out, and people are, but I really like Justin Gaethje in this one, and just because he's the underdog specifically. I'm talking about the betting line. If you're actually doing pick'em, it's tough, but Fizie's is really close to being my pick'em. The other fight of interest to me is the Martin Vettori fight. Obviously, I just think I'm taking Vettori, just hardcore. I more than Justin Gaethje. I just think Vettori is such a high level fighter for his division. He's been through it with some of the highest quality fighters at their respective disciplines. I think that losing to Robert Whittaker or Israel Adesanya does not really blemish your career. It only, shows that you're willing to fight the best at all times. And so for that reason, I don't think that Martin Vettori has any, real huge blemishes on his resume. I think that Leeds is a little bit he's not battle tested to the point where I feel comfortable betting on him. I don't think he has anything that stands out in my opinion and makes him makes it worth betting on him, or even just going for the pick just because I think Vettori has an all-around skill set that can defend against what he's gonna throw at him. I think this also should be a main card fight. I don't think that. I think that I just think it's disrespectful to Vettori. He's fighting somebody who's maybe not as big, but at the end of the day, he's had such great fights with such big names that these people should really be out there. But let's see. Martin's young. I think that Leeds is gonna have to put up against somebody who has the ability to kind of take over his division if he continues to improve, and even if he doesn't, will be an incredibly huge force, but has to also improve and continue to get better over time. But yeah, so I just wanted to take some time and say thank you guys so much for listening. That's kind of gonna wrap it up for me. We didn't lock in any bets today specifically, but I told you guys what I was thinking. We will definitely do that next episode. We'll get some good ones in for you guys, especially after some of the tournament. And yeah, so thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you guys enjoyed. Oh, before we're gonna do it again, I hope you guys please love the episode, but more than that, like, share, subscribe, do whatever you can to get the episode out there if you feel so obliged, because that really helps out. So again, for the 17th time, thank you for watching. Jacob.
At night.